Welcome back to the podcast BYG Bible Studies, coming in for episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed the first installment of this, and hopefully we will continue to get better as we go, and hopefully you benefit from these as we continue just to bring you God's word, talking about our lives as we try to follow Jesus, as we try to follow God. And right now we are just going through God's story, and I hope you guys have been enjoying that. All right, so let me start things off today with a good old little preacher story, okay? That's not how it goes. You see the preacher, he's got to have a story to start things off. So I'm going to do that today, and I'll probably continue to do that in the future. But here we are. Let me get this story going. All right, I want you to imagine right now, all right? The story, there are 3 successful businessmen, all right? Just imagine 3 successful businessmen. All right, you got Steve Jobs, he's still alive, he's sitting there chatting. You got Jeff Bezos, and then you got the other really smart dude who created Microsoft. Okay, I forgot his name. That is very sad. I forgot. Bill Gates! Aha! I got it. Anyways, all right. Imagine 3 successful business people. Those are inventors and tech guys, but imagine some successful business men, and they're all sharing a meal. I mean, imagine being at the table with those 3 guys, sharing a meal, what they could say about life, success, and everything. And so imagine that they're talking, and they start defining success for each of them. Each of them goes through and says, what success is for me. And the first guy, he says, you know what? Success for me is, being called to the White House to meet with the president. And the second guy says, oh, not me. No. He says, meeting the president in the Oval Office. And he ignores the phone when it rings, all right? Presidential duties, he ignores that phone call to continue to talk to me. That's success for me, is when I meet with him and he ignores everything else because he's with me, okay? Wow. Third guy says, both y'all wrong, okay? Really, success is, for me anyway, the third guy says, is meeting with the president in the Oval Office. We're talking, we're chatting. That phone rings, he answers the phone, but then he hands it to me and says, it's for you. That's success. All right, so you might be thinking, wow, these 3 guys are really, you could use a lot of different words, conceited being one, or wow, they're hilarious, their idea of success is kind of wild. And you might have a laugh at these guys. I mean, they have a huge ego, all right? They're egotistical. They're pretty crazy. These 3 people who define success being this big, being called by the president, meeting with the president wanting to see them rather than deal with his duties, or that when people call the White House, they call not for the president, they call for you. I mean, that's kind of wild. That's kind of crazy. But they have a huge ego. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, those huge egos, because here's a secret. I don't know if you guys knew this. Here's a secret, okay? All right. And you know the secret, but you might not just admit it to yourself just yet, okay? And the secret is that we all want to be the center of the universe. That's right. That to each of us, every individual person tries to see themselves as the center of the universe, that everything revolves around them. They want them to be the hero of not their story, but everyone's story. They want to be this, they want to put themselves in the center of the universe. All right? That is the struggle of every human being on earth, all right? Now, the issue with that is, that's pretty challenging when you're trying to follow God, right? When you're trying to follow God, right? And you're trying to follow the belief that God created the universe, He is the center of the universe. It's pretty challenging when you're trying to constantly put yourself in that position, right? God, and that's why God, all throughout the Bible, He talks about how He hates the proud. He hates people who are proud, and the pride is evil, and He hates pride, and He thinks less of the people who are proud, right? And you wonder, why does God hate pride so much? Well, you think about it, right? If you're trying to have a relationship with God and see Him in His rightful place, and living to glorify God, that's kind of hard to do when you're constantly trying to fight God for His position, right? When you're constantly trying to fight somebody to be in their position, it's kind of hard to have a right relationship with them, because we cannot glorify God when we're fighting Him to get glory for ourselves. Like it just doesn't work that way. All right, it doesn't work that way. All right, it's a difficult thing to do, and so we gotta check that, and that's why when we die to ourselves, we receive salvation. And so it all starts when we have to see our need for salvation, right? We have to have that humility, realizing we're not the center of the universe and that we can't help ourselves. You know, and I wanted, that's kind of just the introduction for today, kind of what we're talking about. And let's dive in more on that, because we're going to jump back into the story of the Bible, God's story, right? The story of the Bible is the story of God, and, you know, it's continuing on today. And God's story is our story, so it's important for us to study this and learn this and know this, because it teaches us and we learn about who our God is, right? As we try to serve him, we learn about who he is. So where we are in the story, we're in the book of Daniel. We just had gotten to a point where God let Jerusalem fall to the kingdom of Babylon because of their sin and their idolatry and the hardness of their hearts, he says. So God lets this beloved nation of his, the people who are meant to be his people, he lets them fall to the kingdom of Babylon because really they led themselves there with their idolatry and with their hardness of hearts. And so last week we talked about a couple people in the kingdom of Babylon during the captivity, those people being Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And what they did is they had the Spirit of God on them, and how they went to the furnace. And obviously another big character in there is King Nebuchadnezzar. But really we're seeing how God has, worked through these people, while in captivity. And as he's working with King Nebuchadnezzar, right? So, because Nebuchadnezzar, he made that big old statue of himself. And so God's like, all right, King Neb, I see how it's going to go. And so we're in Daniel 4 today. Now, let me set the scene for you in Daniel 4, okay? How are you going to read this chapter? It says at the beginning of of chapter 4 in the book of Daniel, it says, Nebuchadnezzar sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world, all right? So I like to imagine it as like King Nebuchadnezzar's like big press conference, right? Because we don't have people sending out decrees nowadays to go around to everybody like, hey, I wrote this message and I need all of you to read it. Now it's more like, throw the cameras on, I'm gonna have a press conference where I answer questions and I tell everybody live on TV what's going on, and they probably will watch it later on YouTube or something, So imagine this is some big press conference by King Nebuchadnezzar, right? He's gonna tell us a story. Now, in this big press conference, I want you to imagine the headline being like, King Nebuchadnezzar returns after 7 years. So you're like, oh, what's going on, right? This dude's been missing for 7 years, and now he's back, okay? And he's got a story to tell. He's got something to tell us where he's been, what's been going on, okay? So we got a press conference. Dude's been missing for 7 years. He's returning. He's ready to tell you guys the story of what happened and why he went missing, all right? And so Daniel 4 is kind of that story of what happened and what God did with King Nebuchadnezzar. So Daniel 4, it begins with Nebuchadnezzar having this like crazy dream. It's like this keeps happening in the book of Daniel, okay? All right, this is the very beginning, right? Daniel 4, King Nebuchadnezzar has some crazy old dream, and he tries to bring in a lot of people to, cipher this dream, tell them what's going on, decipher the dream, and, tell them what the dream meant. Because back then people weren't really, dreams were a little different then. Maybe they're the same, who knows? I don't know. Anyways, so he calls Daniel in, right? Daniel's like the dude who explained the dreams before. Why didn't he start there? I don't know. Okay, maybe he doesn't like Daniel for some reason. He loves him actually. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just talking crazy. All right, Daniel comes in and he explains the dream. And he explains to King Nebuchadnezzar what is about to go down. He's like, all right, this is what's going to happen. This is what the dream means. This is what God Almighty is trying to tell you in this dream. And it's all going to happen to you because of your sin and your pride. Okay? It's going to happen to you because of your sin and your pride. King Nebuchadnezzar had, in Babylon, he really made the poor suffer. And those who were in power, who were rich, who were popular, he just helped them rise, and he made the poor suffer more, okay? And so he's saying, because of the sin, he's like, quit, hurting the poor, help the poor. And because of your pride, God's going to do this thing to you, okay? And so we're going to read about, today we're going to talk about what God did with King Nebuchadnezzar, okay? So I'm picking up Daniel chapter 4, verse 29. That's where I'm going to start this at. Okay, I kind of gave you quick paraphrase of everything before this. Daniel chapter 4, verse 29. All right, here we go. 12 months later, okay, so after the dream, after Daniel's explanation of the dream, literally a year later, okay, That's how God works. Sometimes it's not immediate, but it will happen. A year later, King Nebuchadnezzar was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. And as he looked down across the city, he said, "Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor." Dude, what do you say? Who talks like this, first of all? Who gets to the point where they're like, "I built this place by my own power. It's beautiful. It displays my majestic splendor." Who does this? And we've never been in that high of power, and that kind of power, what it does to a person. You think of all these celebrities, what their popularity does to them. You can only imagine if you were the king of a nation, not a president. There's no checks and balances in a king. Okay, king is at the top. What he says goes. Okay, king of a nation has taken over most of the world. Okay, so right here we see that King Nebuchadnezzar, he thinks of himself very highly. Okay, we all fall to that, and he thinks that by his own mighty power, he has built this city. So he kind of says, like, "I did this on my own." Beats his chest, like, "Look what I did. Look what I did all on my own by my mighty power. And it's going to display my majestic splendor," okay? Now, he's basically saying he's the most powerful. It's kind of like when he built the statue last week. We talked about this. He's once again kind of uplifting himself, saying he's the most powerful. He's saying he's majestic, almost kind of saying he's God. Like no other being is more powerful than him, is what he's trying to say. And, I honestly, right here we can easily be like, "This dude's stupid, what is he doing? He's crazy, But, let's be honest. We all inflate our egos from time to time, right? We have been, I haven't been like where I think I'm God. Well, maybe, sort of, because, sometimes we put ourselves in that situation, We typically get our egos inflated from time to time, for sure. For sure, we inflate our egos, or we think we are something. And the truth is that when we do that, we miss seeing the beauty of God in the world around us. You think about this, because if you're trying to follow Jesus, you're trying to follow God. Maybe you've heard before people mention trying to see God in your everyday life. Where did you see God today? Right? Maybe you've had that question before, and that's a question I think is an important one as we try to follow God. Where did we see God today? Now, if you are constantly only seeing yourself, only seeing that everything is up to you, and that the future is in your control, you got to change everything, you got to do it all on your own, and then you see yourself as the center of the universe, it's pretty hard to see God in the world. When we inflate ourselves and make ourselves, when we put ourselves in the place of God, we miss seeing the beauty of God in the world around us. Instead of saying God is the true center of the universe and witness what he's doing in the world, we say, what am I going to do? How am I going to make tomorrow great for me? Rather than, what is God doing in this world? What is God doing in my life? And what amazing things is God going to do in the future like he's done in the past? And we miss out on that beauty and miss out on that deep connection with God because we keep trying to put ourselves in his place. And so I feel for Nebuchadnezzar here because I've been Nebuchadnezzar. I am him sometimes. We all are sometimes. We put ourselves and think we've done everything ourselves, and we focus only on ourselves. And we put ourselves in the place of God. When we try to see everything as it's up to us and we try to control every part of the future, we basically make ourselves God. There's no need to pray anymore because I can handle it. I'm going to do it. There's no reason to even recognize God in life, right? Why would I recognize God even exists? Because I'm like, everything's on me. I'm the center of the universe. I'm going to go forth and make everything great for me. Where's God in the situation? That's why our ego and our pride really makes it challenging for us to follow God sometimes, because we keep trying to put ourselves in his place. This has been the issue with mankind from the very beginning. The fall Adam and Eve, the serpent, Satan, he tempts them with saying, you could be like God if you eat this fruit. If you eat the fruit, you can be like God. You can go in his place. And so he tempts us that way, and that's been our issue ever since. We keep trying to put ourselves in the place of God. All right. But let's get back to our story here, okay? I kind of went on a little thing there, but let's get back to the story. All right. Let's see how King Nebuchadnezzar is talking on his roof like he's a god, that wants to display his majestic splendor to the world, and that he made this great nation of Babylon all on his own. But let's see how God responds to that. This is like a huge moment right here. All right, Daniel 4, verse 31. It's going to get crazy. Get ready. Now, while these words were still in his mouth, he ain't even finished his sentence yet. A voice called down from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdom of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. In that same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws." Wow. That is wild. Now, it's tempting for us to read this and be like, aha, God's like releasing the judgment on him. Like, aha, this is what happens to you. Punishment time. But really, you can almost see this as like God is not unleashing his wrath on King Nebuchadnezzar, but he's showing him compassion. He's taking the time to simply humble him. He's not going like, I'm just going to destroy you, wipe you out. Because he could have done it. He could have been like, oh, you think you're something? You think your nation is something? Watch this. I'm going to rise up this other nation, and it's going to come in and take you out. Now, God did already kind of tell Nebuchadnezzar his nation's not going to last forever, okay? Just like every other kingdom. But, God could have just did that. Could have just did that easily. Could have been like, all right, your royal subject's going to rise up and take you out, and there's going to be this rebellion against you, King Nebuchadnezzar, and people are going to see how flawed you are. But no, God takes the time to simply humble him, to simply just humble him. God stripped him of every worldly value to help him see what mattered most. Sometimes God's got to do that. And sometimes we think it's extreme, though. We're like, well, God doing this extreme stuff, this is crazy. Why would you punish, people like this? Why would you do these hurtful things to people? But the issue is that we must understand the transcendence of God. We must understand that, God's ways are not like our ways. His thoughts are not like our thoughts. He is greater than us. His mind is greater than my mind. His thoughts are higher than mine. He is not bound to the rules and laws of creation, right? He's greater than his creation, right? He's greater than what he made. He's not like, I made something and it's better than me and it's greater than me, and you know what? Yeah, they know everything. I don't know anything. Like, no, God made the world. You gotta understand his transcendence on the world, and that his ways are better than our ways, higher than our ways. And we might not understand it sometimes. We might not understand it sometimes. Just like sometimes a dog doesn't know why he can't have chocolate, or he can't have a certain food that might kill him, right? It might not understand, but you're like, but I know more than you. I'm honestly doing this for your good. I'm helping you by not letting you have something. And so sometimes things seem extreme. Sometimes the thing that God does seems extreme, but really, it might not be. It might seem extreme, but honestly, it's probably for the best. And we have to trust God's transcendence, his knowledge, his wisdom, his power. We have to trust in that and know, because he's a good God. He's a loving God. And you can see right here, because he could have just easily wiped this guy out. But instead, he's going to take time with him and humble him and help him and give him a chance to get what matters most, all right? So God humbles him to offer him an opportunity to know him and experience his blessings. All right, God just didn't be like, Nebuchadnezzar, I'm done with this. You're out. He's like, no, I'm going to humble you. It's going to be extreme. It's going to be kind of weird. Honestly, it's kind of a wild story. But when you come out of it, hopefully, you'll grasp the opportunity to know who I am and experience my blessings. God reduced him to nothing to help change his ways. God reduced him to nothing to help change his ways. Now let me ask you a question. Do you like it when God interrupts your life? Right? We all have a plan for life. We all have a plan of how things should go. Everybody should like me. I should, pass school, get through this. I should be the best in this and area. Continue to keep things a certain way. We all have a plan for our lives. And I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with like dreaming and hoping for the future of things being great. But the issue is we don't like when God interrupts that. We don't like when our plans for life change because God is trying to help us realize something and do something great through us. We get upset about that. We don't like that. Like, God, no, God. I need things to be this way. I need to go to this school. I need to be good in this sport. I need to be the starter. I need to get this stuff. I need to eat, I need this and that. And God's like, listen, I'm trying to take certain things away from you to give you something better or to make you realize something. All right, I'm trying to help you. But we typically don't like when God interrupts our lives because we want to be the God of our life and not have him as the God of our life. The issue is we keep trying to take his place. We keep trying to take his place. Now, let's see what happens to King Nebuchadnezzar after he's basically become a wild animal, all right, eating grass like a cow, got them bird claws and eagle's feathers, hair. It's kind of weird. But pick up verse 34. I think we're reading out the rest of this chapter. Yeah, here we go. It's just a few verses. All right, Daniel 4:34. After this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar. Remember, this is a press conference, right? Nebuchadnezzar's like telling the whole story. He's like, now after some time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, I looked up to heaven, and my sanity returned. And I praised and worshiped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. And all the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, what do you mean by doing these things? And when my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored as head of my kingdom, with even greater honor than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he is able to humble the proud. Ooh, what a good cap on the whole chapter. He is able to humble the proud. Boom. Great press conference. I would love to see a press conference like that today. And so you see here, because of God stripping him down of everything and making him realize who he was, King Nebuchadnezzar declares the greatness of God. And he recognizes God's power and strength, And he also recognizes how small he is in comparison to God. And he says that, what does he go back here? Let me read his exact words. All people of earth are nothing compared to him. And I think Nebuchadnezzar is including himself in that, for sure. And so this realization of who God is and who Nebuchadnezzar was, compared to God, brought him to praise and worship. And I think that's the right response, that when we finally have that breakthrough moment, where we realize who we are in comparison to God and who he is, it leads us to praise and worship. And you got to think about this is a huge transformation. This is a dude who built a statue of himself and wanted everybody to bow down and worship it. All right, this guy, he thought he was it. No one greater than him on earth. He saw himself as a god. And God, through this life-changing moment, made this huge transformation in his heart happen. Where he then realizes who he is in comparison to God, and he praises and worships God. And this transformation resembles our transformation. That's what's so amazing here, right? This transformation resembles our transformation. Our transformation as followers of Christ is very similar. We recognize when we got to do it first. When we recognize our faults and who we are as humans, and our need to put God in the center of the universe. We recognize that when we humble ourselves for a second and realize we've been trying to be God and we made a mess of things. I mess up hugely. I hurt myself when I try to put myself as the center of the universe. And I make life terrible for me. And I realize that I am not the Almighty. I am not as awesome as God. And I need to put Him back in the right place. That is when we are ready to accept the gift of salvation. You know, if you were baptized and you decided to accept the gift of salvation and you didn't recognize that first, if you didn't realize the need that you had, obviously that's part of it, right? I don't even know why I'm trying to condemn you. I'm trying to say duh. When you were baptized and when you're realizing that you want to accept the gift of salvation, as in you realize I need this thing, right? You got to realize the need first. You know, you got to realize your need for salvation. You realize your faults, realize what you've been doing. That's when you're ready to accept that gift. All right? That's when you're ready to accept the gift. Now, through our transformation, we become less like King Nebuchadnezzar and more like Jesus. Now, let me tell you this. This is not right out the gate, okay? God's not like, once you're baptized, boom, you're good. You're just like Jesus now. Perfect. It's like, no, transformation takes time, okay? It takes time. And we go from being like King Nebuchadnezzar, where it's all about us, trying to make our lives great on our own, to becoming more like Jesus. Now, let me compare the two here. King Nebuchadnezzar, he forced his subjects to serve him in order to prove his distinction, in order to prove how great he was and raise himself up high. He forced people to serve him in order to prove how great he was. But Jesus humbled himself and became a servant of all men. Right? He didn't raise himself up. He lowered himself and washed feet and served and loved and got his hands dirty for other people, for the rejects of the world. He did that. King Nebuchadnezzar forced his subjects to serve him, and Jesus served others. King Nebuchadnezzar demanded people honor him because of how great he was. He's like, y'all need to honor me because of how awesome I am. All right? And Jesus steps down, right? Veils his divinity. All right? He humbles himself before God and lives a life of exalting the Father greater than himself. That's completely different. King Nebuchadnezzar promoted those who were rich and popular in his kingdom. And Jesus says that those who are the least are the great. He lifted up those who were poor and rejected by society. It was completely different. And that is our story as well. That we are becoming less like King Nebuchadnezzar, where it's all about us, and people need to recognize how great we are, and we need to, the people around me, I need to constantly lift up the people who are cool and the people who have more, right? And exclude others, right? That's King Nebuchadnezzar type stuff, excluding others. And I need to become more like Jesus, who lifts up God, who humbles himself before other people, and who looks at the lowest person and makes them feel like they're the greatest. That is what I'm becoming. That's what God needs to be transforming all of us into. That's what he is transforming all of us into. We just have to let him do that. We have to recognize that we keep putting ourselves as God, and we need to put him in the right place and lower ourselves. And you know what? King Nebuchadnezzar did not deserve this. He didn't deserve God to intervene in his life and remove his pride. He deserved to be wiped out. All right? He's a pagan. He's worshiping false idols. He's thinking he's a god. He doesn't deserve, this kind of love, this kind of patience, this kind of mercy. But God gave it to him anyway. You know who else doesn't deserve it? Me. You. We. We do not deserve the kind of patience and love and mercy. But we get it. That's called grace. That's our God. That's who we serve. That's the one that needs to be in the rightful spot. That's the one who needs to be in the center of the universe, because we cannot love like that. We are not as great as that. And he is. So we need to make sure we're putting him in the right spot, because he loves us. He takes the time to intervene in our lives and humble us and help us see who he really is and enjoy his blessings and his greatness and his beauty, So I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about the actions in your life things you've been doing. Now, do they point to you having a prideful heart or a humble one? What actions maybe could you do that help your heart become more humble? What things could you step out and do to become more humble? And a way to help you know the answer to that one is think about, how can I imitate the humility of Jesus to other people? Right? When I think about my friends, think about people I hang out with, people I talk to, take time for. How can I imitate Jesus when I interact with others? Maybe it's not just those who are like me. Maybe it's not just those who are popular or cool or good looking or, funny. Maybe it's those who feel rejected. Maybe it's the person over there alone, quiet. Let me humble myself and go show them love. I don't know. I'm harping on that today. It's important. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope that it's beneficial to your life. That's all that we have for today with this lesson. I mean, it's an important one. It might be something you've heard before, but it's just great to continue to revisit this because we all need that. We all need to realize that we keep trying to put we keep trying to put ourselves as the center of the universe. And when we do that, we mess up the universe, our world especially. And we need to put God in his rightful place and be his people. Well, guys, I hope you have a great day. Remember always that I love you, that God loves you, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Y'all have a great day.